Welcome back to MMA Meltdown here on 102.3 ESPN. We have a special guest with us here today. He's a former UFC heavyweight champion of the world, former Open King of Pancrase champion, and a former world champion in Nogi. He also is a professional wrestler. The babyface assassin, Josh Barnett. Welcome.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Hey, the first thing I got to ask you is, how did you get that nickname?
The War Master?
Well, the babyface assassin.
Oh, the babyface assassin. Well, that name came because TJ Thompson and Matt Hume, Matt being my trainer at the time, and I was fighting in Super Brawl. I went through this 8-man heavyweight tournament in one night, some of the best heavyweights from around the world at the time. And I was like 21 years old, and I had a very, very young face at that. And I was scheduled to fight Dan Severn coming up in a super fight for Super Brawl 16. So they got their heads together, and they came up with the babyface assassin. And I'll admit it, I did not even look barely 21.
That's a good one for somebody that looks young, and it's a good one to have when you get older, trust me.
Well, you'd think so, but when people start asking you, well, your nickname is what? The babyface assassin? I've never seen any babies with gray hair.
As long as they keep the assassin part right. Hey, what does your mom call you? Obviously not that.
Or late for dinner, thank God. So, Josh usually works.
All right. I know you've got all this experience and tons of things that you've done and won and everything. You kind of call yourself a catch wrestler. Would you describe to our listeners what a catch wrestler is?
A catch wrestler is essentially the old school submission art that used to permeate most of the world at one time. The roots lie from professional wrestling, when professional wrestling was an actual legitimate sport, and it comes from the extension of amateur wrestling. So you had amateur wrestling, which didn't really have the submission holds, and then once you've gotten to a point past that, then submission holds would become a factor. It's an art that's been in the limelight for a long time, as its prominence was mainly in, say, the 1800s, early 1900s. Some of the best catch wrestlers in the world, of the modern world especially, Carl Gotch and Bill Robinson, ended up over in Japan at some point with the New Japan Pro Wrestling and UWF, and ended up training these Japanese professional wrestlers and teaching them catch wrestling, and from there that began modern MMA matches, sparsely and throughout some of these organizations, and then eventually branching off these trained wrestlers and creating organizations like Pancrase and Rings, Shuto, and things that would eventually come on to be evolved to modern mixed martial arts that even still exists over in Japan. And my original trainer, Matt Hume, trained with those guys in Pancrase, and therefore that knowledge came down to me. And with the wrestling background that I have, it just made the most perfect sense.
You know, Saturday night you're fighting Daniel Cormier, obviously a fabulous wrestler, two-time Olympian, and so on and so on. What kind of things have you had to do different to get ready for a wrestler of that caliber?
Well, one thing I did do was I went out to the U.S. Air Force Academy and trained with Joel Sherritt, who was a three-time All-American from Iowa, trained under Gable, has a great program that's going on out there at Air Force. He's a great coach, and I brought my training partner, Eric Hammer, and Bobby Lashley, and Bobby brought one of his young students, and we took advantage of not only being at over 7,000 elevation, but all the wrestling knowledge, Joel Sherritt, and just drilling and drilling and drilling, because not only do I want to stop Cormier's offense with his wrestling, but I want to be able to use wrestling as part of my offensive attack, too, and put him on his back.
You know, I know there was some talk about Cormier had said that he can't get taken down by you because then he loses a little credibility. What do you think about something like that?
You know what? If that's how he feels about it, I can't change his mind, but I hope he doesn't feel too bad when I score on him out there and he's going to have to try and get back up to his feet. I think this is a fight. This is not a pure freestyle wrestling match, so you have to take that into play. And
sure.
Also, I consider myself a pretty fair wrestler as well.
And what is your background in wrestling?
I wrestled in high school. I took 7th and 2nd in high school state. I went to state my first year wrestling as a heavyweight, and then I went to junior nationals twice in Greco-Roman and freestyle, representing the state of Washington.
Now, I know it's been said, you know, if you win this fight and win this tournament, obviously you'll probably get a shot at the UFC. Is that really where you want to be at?
I want to be wherever the opposition is, and wherever I can put together a great deal where I should say my manager can put together a great deal where, you know, it's all taken care of and there's nothing to worry about but the opponents in front of you.
Yeah, and I think that's where most fighters come from. They, you know, they want to look at the fight. It doesn't matter where it is or who, you know, it's how big the fight is, and especially when you're professional, you know, what kind of money is involved for you guys.
Yeah, there's a very strong business quotient to all of this, but I've been doing this for too long, and I don't chase. I just take.
Yeah, and that's a good way to look at it. You know, most of your wins are by submission. What are your favorite submissions, and how do you see this fight going? Do you see it going to a submission?
I think a submission is a likely outcome for this. I've got a very strong submission background, and it's statistically I've won a lot of fights with submission. So getting something locked up on them isn't really out of realm of possibility. I'm a big fan of leg locks, and I don't always have to use them in my matches because if dominant positioning, you can just pepper away with people with strikes and they end up just giving up an arm or a neck. But everybody knows me in the MMA world as being a pretty prominent leg lock guy.
Is there anything else we should know about Josh Barnett?
You know what? The guy's into sex, drugs, rock and roll, tearing ass in a fast car with fast women, and playing his music past 11.
All righty. Do you have anybody you'd like to thank?
Well, yeah. I mean, I want to thank Eric Paulson and CSW and everybody that helped me to prepare for this match. They all know who they are, and I've got some amazing sponsors. And tune in on Saturday night and come see me do work out there in the Strikeforce cage and be crowned the first Strikeforce Heavyweight Grand Prix champion.
All righty. Hey, we've been talking to Josh Barnett, who's in the finals of the Heavyweight Grand Prix on Strikeforce Saturday night. Best of luck to you, Josh. I know luck doesn't play into it, but hey, get after it and have a good fight. Thanks for joining us. All righty. Thanks a lot.
Bye-bye.
Bye.